I never expected to come home to a mystery. My name is Emily, a 29-year-old sales manager, and I had just returned from a business trip in New York. My husband Daniel was supposed to be on a trip to Chicago. Our quiet suburban home, usually dark and empty during our mutual absences, was strangely alive with light. As I dragged my suitcase up the driveway, our neighbor Sarah approached me. Her expression was a mix of concern and awkwardness. "Emily, I thought you were away. The noise last night. I'm sorry if we disturbed you," she said, biting her lip. Confusion clouded my mind. "I just got back, Sarah. What noise?" Her eyes widened slightly. "Oh, I thought you were home. Your lights have been on every night this week. I heard some laughter and music last night. I assumed you guys were throwing a small party or something." I felt a cold knot forming in my stomach. Daniel was supposed to be in Chicago, not here having parties. "No, it wasn't us. Daniel's away on business," I responded, trying to keep my voice steady. Sarah's face mirrored my confusion. "That's odd. Well, welcome back, Emily." With that, she retreated, leaving me with a growing sense of unease. Inside, the house felt different. It was too neat. The air held a faint scent of perfume, not mine. I moved through the rooms, my heart racing. Then I saw them. A pair of red high heels by the bed, shoes I had never seen before. They sat there, silently screaming a truth I wasn't ready to face. I needed answers, and I needed them fast. Dialing my in-laws, I put on my best cheerful voice. "Hi, Linda. Hi, George. I have a great idea. How about a surprise dinner for Daniel? He's supposed to come back tomorrow. Let's pretend I'm still away and give him a surprise welcome." Their enthusiastic agreement did little to ease the dread coiling in my gut. As I ended the call, I knew one thing for sure. Something was terribly wrong, and I was about to uncover it. The stage was set, and the players were about to assemble. The truth awaited, and I wasn't sure I was ready for it. The evening was cool and quiet as Linda and George, my in-laws, pulled into our driveway. Their faces were bright with excitement for the surprise. I greeted them with a forced smile, masking the turmoil inside me. "Emily, darling, this is such a fun idea. Daniel will be so surprised," Linda chirped as she hugged me. I nodded, leading them inside. "He thinks I'm still out of town. Let's hide in the living room and wait for him to arrive." The tension was palpable as we settled in. The unfamiliar pair of high heels I had found earlier glared at me from the corner, a stark reminder of the betrayal lurking in my own home. An hour passed, and then we heard the front door open. My heart pounded in my chest as we heard footsteps approaching. The living room door swung open, and there stood Daniel, frozen in shock. "Emily? Mom? Dad? What's going on?" His voice faltered, eyes darting nervously. "Surprise!" Linda exclaimed, but her smile faded as she took in Daniel's guilty expression. "Daniel, why are you so surprised to see your wife in her own house? And why do we hear rumors that you've been here all week?" George's voice was stern, his usual jovial demeanor gone. Daniel's face flushed red. I had to come back early, work stuff. I didn't tell Emily because I wanted to surprise her." I stepped forward, holding up the red high heels. "And who do these belong to, Daniel? Surprising me with a guest." His eyes widened in panic. That's not what it looks like, Emily." Before he could say more, we heard a noise upstairs. Footsteps. Slowly descending. I felt Linda and George's bewildered gaze on me as a young woman appeared at the foot of the stairs. It was Rachel, a former colleague known for her flirtatious behavior and disregard for boundaries. "Daniel, who are all these people?" Rachel asked, her voice dripping with feigned innocence. The room fell silent. Linda's hand flew to her mouth, and George's face turned to stone. I looked at Daniel, betrayal etching a deep scar in my heart. "Rachel, meet my parents and my wife, Emily," Daniel stammered, his facade crumbling. Linda's eyes brimmed with tears, and George's voice shook with anger. "You bring a woman into your marital home? This is how you respect your marriage?" The confrontation escalated as accusations and denials flew. Rachel's smug expression only fueled my growing rage. This was the breaking point, the moment my marriage turned to dust. As the night wore on, the truth became painfully clear. My world had been shattered, but from its ruins, a fierce resolve was born. Daniel and Rachel would not get away with this betrayal. The stage for revenge was set, and I was ready to play my part. The morning after the confrontation was heavy with unspoken words. Linda and George had left, their disappointment palpable. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the untouched coffee, my mind racing with cold, hard thoughts of revenge. Daniel emerged from the guest room, his eyes avoiding mine. "Emily, we need to talk," he began hesitantly. I looked up, my voice icy. "There's nothing to talk about. I want a divorce." He flinched as if struck. "Please, Emily, it's not what you think. I was lonely, you were always away, and Rachel, it just happened." I slammed my hand on the table, startling him. "Just happened? You betrayed our marriage, Daniel, and in our home. There's no excuse for that." Daniel's attempts at explanation were feeble, filled with cliches and blame-shifting. It was clear he was more concerned about being caught than the actual infidelity. I stood up, my decision firm. "I'll be contacting a lawyer today. I want you out of this house." "But Emily, this house, it's ours," he protested weakly. "No, Daniel, it's mine. You forget, your credit was a mess. This house is in my name only. And remember, you've never paid a dime towards the mortgage." His face paled, realization dawning. I didn't care. The man I loved had been a facade, and I was done playing the forgiving wife. As I walked away to make the call, I could feel his eyes on my back, filled with desperation and regret. But it was too late. My heart had turned to stone. The lawyer was sympathetic and efficient. "You have a strong case, Emily, especially considering the infidelity and the financial aspects." I nodded, feeling a sense of empowerment. "I want to sue for emotional distress as well. He's not going to walk away from this unscathed." "Understood," the lawyer replied. "We'll make sure he pays for what he's done." Word of Daniel's infidelity spread like wildfire, tainting his reputation. Colleagues and friends looked at him differently now. He had become a pariah, an outcast in the community we once shared. As I lay in bed that night, the silence of the house was a stark contrast to the chaos in my heart. The path of revenge was lonely, but necessary. Daniel had to learn that his actions had consequences. This was just the beginning. The weeks following the revelation were a blur of legal consultations and cold, sleepless nights. My resolve for revenge never wavered, even as Daniel's pleas for forgiveness became more desperate and frequent. One afternoon, as I was sifting through divorce papers, the doorbell rang. Standing outside was Rachel, her face a mask of arrogance and defiance. "Can we talk, Emily?" she asked, trying to push past me into the house. I blocked her path, my voice steady but cold. "There's nothing to discuss. You're not welcome here." Rachel's eyes flashed with anger. "Daniel loves me. You can't just throw him out like this. It's not fair." I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. "Fair? You talk about fairness after sneaking around with my husband? You're as delusional as he is." Her face contorted with fury. "You're ruining his life, and for what? Revenge? You're pathetic." I stepped closer, my voice laced with venom. "No, Rachel, what's pathetic is a woman who preys on a married man. You both deserve what's coming to you." She scoffed and turned away, but not before I saw the uncertainty flicker in her eyes. They knew their affair wasn't just a harmless fling anymore. It had consequences, and they were just starting to feel them. The news of the lawsuit and divorce spread like wildfire. Daniel's reputation at work crumbled. Whispers followed him everywhere, and his professional relationships soured. Rachel, too, found herself isolated, her manipulative charm no longer effective. The day Daniel was let go from his job, he came to me, a broken man. "Emily, please. I've lost everything. My job, my reputation. Isn't that enough?" I looked at him, feeling nothing but disdain. "You should have thought about that before you betrayed me. This is the bed you've made, Daniel. Now lie in it." As I closed the door on his pleading face, a sense of satisfaction washed over me. This was the revenge I had sought, to see him lose everything, just as I had lost my trust and love for him. But even as I savored the moment, a hollow feeling lingered in my heart. Revenge had its price, and I was beginning to understand the cost. The divorce proceedings were a cold, methodical process. Each session in the lawyer's office was a reminder of the irrevocable damage Daniel had inflicted on our marriage. He seemed to shrink with each meeting, a shadow of the confident man I had married. One day, as the autumn leaves began to turn, I received a call from Linda. Her voice, usually warm and cheerful, was heavy with disappointment. "Emily, we saw Daniel yesterday. He's not doing well." I paused, unsure how to feel. "Linda, he made his choices." "I know, dear, but he's our son. He's lost his job, his friends. Now he's talking about leaving town. It's just heartbreaking to see him like this." I sighed, a part of me softening. I understand, Linda, but he brought this on himself. I'm moving on with my life. The call ended on a somber note. I couldn't deny a twinge of pity for Daniel, but it was drowned out by the echo of his betrayal. A week later, Daniel's voice came through my phone, small and defeated. Emily, the company let me go. They said it was because of the lawsuit and the scandal. I've got nothing left. His words should have brought me satisfaction, but all I felt was emptiness. You should have thought about the consequences, Daniel. I hope you find a way to rebuild your life, but it won't be with me. Hanging up, I realized the revenge I had sought was a hollow victory. Yes, Daniel was paying for his actions, but the cost was higher than I had anticipated. It wasn't just his life unraveling, it was a part of mine too. As the days passed, the house felt more like a shell, a reminder of a life that once was. My victories in court, the compensations, the apologies, they all felt meaningless. The finality of the divorce papers was a stark, unyielding end to a chapter I once cherished. I began to understand that revenge, no matter how justified, doesn't always bring the closure one seeks. It was a lesson learned in the hardest way, through the pain of a broken heart and a broken marriage. Time, they say, heals all wounds. It was a slow, painful process, but gradually the raw edges of betrayal and anger began to fade. I immersed myself in work and reconnected with old friends, building a life that was entirely my own. 2 years had passed since the divorce when I met Alex. He was different from anyone I'd ever known, kind, understanding, and with a warmth that seemed to light up the darkest corners of my past. With him, I rediscovered what it felt like to trust and love again. One evening, as we sat watching the sunset, Alex took my hand. Emily, I know your past has been painful, but I want to be part of your future. Will you marry me? The proposal was simple, yet it filled me with a sense of hope I hadn't felt in years. Yes, Alex, I would love that. We married in a small, intimate ceremony. It was a new beginning, a chance to leave the shadows of the past behind. A year into our marriage, I found out I was pregnant. The news brought a joy so profound, it eclipsed the lingering bitterness of my previous marriage. When our son Ethan was born, holding him in my arms felt like holding a piece of the future, bright and full of possibilities. It was during one of these peaceful days that I received an unexpected call. It was Daniel. His voice was hesitant, a far cry from the confident man he once was. Emily, I heard you've moved on, that you're happy. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. His apology, late and inadequate, didn't stir the old anger I expected. Instead, I found myself feeling indifferent. Thank you, Daniel. I've moved on. I wish you well. As I hung up, I realized that I had truly turned a page. The hurt and betrayal that once consumed me had lost their grip. In their place was a life filled with love, a family I adored, and a future that was mine to shape. 3 years after my divorce from Daniel, life had settled into a peaceful rhythm. My days were filled with the laughter of my son and the quiet, steadfast love of Alex. The shadows of the past had dimmed, replaced by the bright promise of the present. One crisp autumn afternoon, as I pushed Ethan's stroller through the park, I spotted a familiar figure on a distant bench. It was Daniel. He looked older, warier, a stark contrast to the man who once shared my life. Our eyes met, and in a moment of unexpected courage, I approached him. Emily, he said softly, his voice tinged with a mix of surprise and remorse. Daniel, I replied, feeling a strange sense of detachment. How have you been? He glanced at Ethan, then back at me. I've been surviving. Seeing you now with your son, you look happy. I am, I said, not without a sense of pride. Life has moved on, Daniel. I've found happiness again. He nodded, looking down at his hands. I never did. After everything that happened, after losing you, my job, I realized the cost of my mistakes, but it was too late. His words were heavy with regret, but they no longer had the power to hurt me. We all make choices, Daniel, and we live with them. I hope you find some peace. He looked up, his eyes meeting mine. I'm glad you're happy, Emily. You deserved better than what I gave you. I'm truly sorry. As I left the park that day, with Ethan babbling happily in his stroller, I felt a sense of closure. The final chapter of a painful part of my life was concluding, and the future stretched out before me, filled with hope and light. In the end, the greatest revenge was not in seeing Daniel suffer, but in building a life of joy and love beyond him. a life where the scars of the past were just faint lines, tell testaments to my strength and resilience. I walked home that day with a light heart, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. The journey had been long and fraught with pain, but it had led me to a place of peace and contentment, and for that I was profoundly grateful.